Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Game Night Date Night. And this episode is in collaboration with Games and Couples. And Games and Couples do really amazing things, and they do couples counseling utilizing board game as one of their main tools to help couple connect or reconnect or maintain their friendship and their relationship as well. And I think that's just amazing work that they do. And one of the neat things that they've done as well is they've created a rating system to help rate games to use it as such a tool. So they rate games on 3 different aspects, and the rating system goes from 1 to 5. Now keep in mind, 1 is not bad, 5 is not good. It's just different on each of these aspects. And let me go over that a little bit with you here. So the first aspect that games are rated as is for conversation and connection potential. So some games are so busy that there's so much going on in the game that the whole focus is on the game and there's very little room for conversation. While some games would have a lot more downtime and would be more feasible to have nice casual conversation while playing the game. And that would be more towards the 5 point of conversation and connection potential, while the first one would be more of a 1. But depending on where you are in your relationship, maybe there's a lot of conflict and things escalate quickly, so maybe having less conversation is more where you're at that point. Or maybe you are trying to create evenings where you can reconnect and kind of have meaningful time with your partner and your spouse. So having higher level of conversation and communication is maybe more what you're looking for. The different aspect that is rated as well is also the getting to know you. Some games have a little bit more elements where you can see your partner, how they're making decisions, or kind of get to know them a little bit better. Some relationship are maybe newer and you're trying to, kind of get more used to each other, or maybe you're kind of learning to reconnect, right? Maybe you're spending more time together and you're trying to learn about each other again. And then we're having a higher level of getting to know you in a game would be more beneficial in that case. And then the third aspect that the rating system covers is potential for hurt feelings and conflict. Let's face it, this is a board game, and in a game, most of the time, we're trying to get one winner. And that, the means of how you get to that, depending on the type of game that you're playing, could potentially create opportunities to have conflict or hurt feelings. And if you're in a relationship where there's already a lot of conflict, maybe you're looking for something that's on the lower end of this aspect. Or maybe you're learning to deal with conflict and resolution. So having a controlled environment where you can work on that skill might be what you're needing, and then having a higher level of conflict in a game might be more towards what you're needing at that time. So over the course of the month, I've been having the game of the week, and I'm going to go over these 4 games and talk about them, how they play, what I think of them, and also how they rate in our rating system. So the first game for this month is Lost Cities. So Lost Cities is a 2-player game, and it's such a neat card game. You have the board in front between you, and you're going on expedition. Now the thing you need to keep in mind is you got your deck of cards, and then the cards you're playing is going to show which expedition you go on. Now the moment you start an expedition, there's fees involved, and right away that particular expedition is at negative 20 points, and you got to try to add more cards to it and increase the points to it so that you can get a positive score there. Now the tricky part is you don't have all the cards you're going to be utilizing. You have a limited hand to begin with, but you'll be drawing as you go. So based on what you have in your hand, you'll be like, okay, well, it looks like I have a fair bit amount of blues, so I think I'm going to get going on blue. There's also handshake cards, which would double the points that you have on the expedition if you play those first. Now you got to be careful, because if your expedition for some reason ends up not getting enough point and it's a negative score, then now you're doubling the negative score. So it's a neat push your luck a little bit in that case. So you're kind of like, okay, well, I think I'm going to start the blue expedition because I have a lot of blue cards, and then you'll start the blue expedition, and you got to play your cards from lowest to highest. Now, it doesn't have to be all numerical, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can skip some numbers, but if you've played 2 and then you skip to 5 and you get a 3, you can no longer play the 3. And then you'll kind of also keep cards in your hands because you're like, I see they're going for the yellow expedition, and I have an 8 in the yellow. Well, I'm not going to give them that. And because on your turn you're going to play cards, but then you can discard, and any card that you discard is discarded on that middle board, and your partner would have the option or the opportunity to draw that. So maybe if you got the yellow 8, you're not discarding that until they've played a 9. They'll be like discarding it then and be like, you had it all along. So it's a very interesting game. It's one that I've played quite a few times and I really enjoy it, and I'll show you more pictures of it. So you got the different colored expedition that you'll be playing, the discard pile in the middles, and then you have the deck of cards that you're drawing from as well. And when that pile is completely diminished, that triggers the end of the game. So you want to make sure also that you don't keep the cards in your hand too long, and you have the chance and the opportunity to play them to score the points that you need, because if that pile is gone and you haven't played your cards, you've run out of time. Such a neat, interesting game. Lost Cities is one of my one game that I really like to play, mostly at 2 players. Now, actually, let me go back because I haven't really talked about the rating system. So for the conversation and connection potential, I've given this one a 3 out of 5. Because you're drawing cards, you're playing cards, there's definitely opportunity to have conversation in this one. It's not a very high energy game. For the getting to know you, I've also put this one at a 3 out of 5. It's interesting to see what your partner's doing, what they're holding on to, how they feel. If it's like all of a sudden like, oh, look, I had that color all along, and just kind of to get a sense of them and how they play and how they decide, So I think you get a little bit of that with this one. Now for the hurt feelings and conflict, I'm also giving this one a 3. It's a card playing game, but if you've been really trying to work on one expedition and all of a sudden you're like, fine, I give up, I'm just going to play it, I'm not drawing the cards I need, and you realize that they were holding on to it all along. Now it's part of the game, but that could create some frustrations anyways. So this was Lost Cities. Now the next game that we talked about this month is One Deck Dungeon. One Deck Dungeon is such a neat, compact, small little game. I have played this one so much, and it's one that's really neat. Now you select a character that you're going to play as, and in this game they're all female characters, and they all have different strength, and they'll have different dice that they get to start when they're playing. And you'll be rolling the dice, going through the dungeon, and you get the 4 doors, and they're face down, and you'll be like, okay, well, let's go in this door, and you flip the door over, and you kind of see it'll either be a monster or a trap that you need to face. And then there'll be spots on that card that you have to cover up with the dice, and then rolling the dice, and that's like, maybe you have lots of pink dice and yellow dice, and the player has lots of yellow dice and some blue dice, and then you flip a card, and that particular card requires a lot of blue dice to get through, and it's like, oh shoot, we're not really well equipped for this. Now you get the choice, like, okay, well, do we run away, or do we go to another door, or do we try this one anyways? And it's a really interesting one. And then as you come to the doors and you roll the dice and trying to defeat the card, anything that you cannot cover has symbols on it, and then if you're not completing everything on the card, you're going to take some sort of penalty. So it could be where you're taking health damage, or it could be that you're losing time, and the deck of card that you're flipping, that is the doors you're going through, is also your time. So it could be, well, you're losing 2 times, so you got to discard 2 cards. And once you get to the bottom of the deck, you're going to come across the stairs, and you go into the second level of the dungeon, and things get a little bit more difficult. And then you'll do that until you kind of gone through all the way through the dungeon, then you flip that card over, and now you're at the big boss. It's such a fun, neat game. In the rating system, for the conversation and connection potential, I give this one a 2 out of 5. You're rolling the dice, you're going through the things. I find myself personally, I get so into the game that I'm not having other conversation all that much. Now you could kind of like take a slower pace with it. I just haven't. I was too much into the game, got too excited about it, and you're rolling the dice trying to figure it out, and wasn't a game that I had tons of casual conversation during. For the getting to know your partner, I've put that at a 3 because it's interesting to see how they decide what they're gonna do or how they're gonna roll the dice. And one thing as well is when you've complete a dungeon or the monster or the trap, that card now becomes available to either add as extra dice that your character will have access to, or extra abilities, or that you could discard it to level up the your whole character. And then it's interesting because there's multiple ways that this card can be used, and it's like, okay, well, what do you want to concentrate on? What's more important to you? So yeah, I think there's some opportunities here to get to know your partner. Now, for hurt feelings and conflict, let's be clear, there's going to be some hurt feelings in this game. There is going to be some hurt feelings, but it's not going to come from your partner. It's going to come from the game itself, because the very first time, like sometimes until you level up your character, the dice can be so unforgiving, and you're rolling and you're getting really bad dice and you're not completing anything, and then you get destroyed, and it can be frustrating, or at least it was for me when I first, but it's such an addicting game and it's so good. And then you start rolling and you can play this kind of campaign mode where your character develops as they go, and then you get better abilities and you're doing a little bit better. But it is a cooperative game, so you and your partner are playing together, trying to get through this dungeon together, so there shouldn't be that much hurt feelings and conflict coming from each other. I'm just saying the game dishes its own anyways. Let me show you a little bit more. So this is kind of, we've got the character there. You can see I've got some upgraded abilities that's been tucked below, and then she's actually gained a yellow dice now. So this particular character, when she rolls right now, has 3 blue dice, red die, and a yellow dice. And the dice are nice and clear, and then you roll them, and then you see on the door that one, we need some yellow for the 3 and the 5 there. And then you got the one on the top where it's a larger square. With the larger square, it allows you to combine dice together. You also have some black dice that are considered to be wild. You can also combine other color dice together to turn them into a wild dice. But if you take a 4 and a 5 and you combine them together, it turns into a wild 4, the lowest of the 2 dice. Such a neat game. I really enjoy this one. And this was One Deck Dungeon. Now, the next game that I talked about this week was Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. So this one is another dungeon crawl, but it's actually, you have a map and you're going around the map. There's monsters. And what's neat with the Jaws of the Lion version of Gloomhaven is that you have a book with all the maps. So their setups is quite a bit less than the original Gloomhaven. As well, the first 5 scenarios that you'll be playing slowly introduces all of the rules of the game. So it's not all overwhelming all at once. It starts with like, okay, well, this is how you move around, and this is how that works, and this is how battling monsters work, and then, okay, well, now that you know that, this is how utilizing items and that sort of stuff kind of goes. So it slowly introduces all the elements of the game. So by the end of the 5th scenario, you know how to play the game. It's such a neat game. It's one that, and as I mentioned, it's a campaign game, so there's a lot of different scenarios that you can go through and kind of work your way through. So, and with campaign games, I found playing that with my partner to be the best, because it's so hard to kind of get other players to dedicate to meet regularly and kind of commit to that time. But with your partner, you're together more often anyway, so this is a great solution for a campaign game as far as I'm concerned. With the rating system, I give this one for conversation and connection for potential a 3 out of 5. And the reason for that is it plays in, like, you set up your first, and you get your 2 cards. So you have your deck of cards, you kind of go through your cards, and you select 2. And you're going to do an action on the top of one of the cards and the bottom action on the other card. So you kind of select what you want to do, you put that down, and then you would do those actions, do those movements, and see what comes up. And then you reset again. So there's a lot of reset time where it makes it potential to kind of have more casual conversation while you're going through your cards, because it's a bit more of a downtime during that time. And then for getting to know your partner, again, you know how they're gonna decide their things, how they're gonna deal with the whole conflict and the battle of the monsters and the conversations you're having. So I think there's opportunities for getting to know your partner during this one. For hurt feelings and conflict, I give this one a 2 out of 5 because this is a cooperative game. Although I'm gonna say my character in this game that we're playing mostly deals with providing extra abilities to the other people around her, or by manipulating the monsters around her. And my partner tends to always move out of range when I'm about to give him extra attack, and it's kind of like, because you don't discuss the moves that you're going to do and you reveal what you're going to do, and it's like, why did you move out of the way? I was about to give you this. Now you have to kind of change on the fly with what you have selected already. And so yeah, it could be, but it is a cooperative game. You are going through these maps with the same goal, helping each other. So you know, not so much for conflict, but it can have some level of frustration, mostly if that sort of things happen. Now let me show you some more pictures of Gloomhaven. So you see there in the middle, we have the book with all the map, and depending on the scenario, which map you go into. If you notice in this one, there's a doorway. So we have where the monsters are going to be, but they haven't been put up yet because we haven't reached the door. Once the door is open, then the monsters populate over there. It's neat, you have all your equipment. When you kill a monster, it drops some gold, and you can pick up that gold, and at the end of the scenario, you would use that gold to purchase more items that you would have access to in the next scenario. It's a really neat game. I really enjoy this one, and that's Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. And then the next game that I talked about this month was Raptor. Raptor is another 2-player game, and it's such a neat game. One person plays as the mama raptor, and she has her baby raptors with her. And the other player is playing as a group of scientists who are trying to capture those babies so that they can study them. And so you have 2 different roles with 2 very different goals. The mama raptor is trying to get the babies to escape or to kill all of the scientists that's on the board. The scientists try to capture 3 babies so that they can perform their studies, or tranquilize the mama raptor at least 5 times so that she's out and out of the way so they can do what they need to do. And what's really neat with this one too is it has such a unique action selecting mechanism that I hadn't really seen before. And every time I had heard about this game, I'd heard about how great it was, but I didn't fully understand how that works. So you have a deck of cards, and it goes from 1 to 9. And that's both of you have that. So you shuffle your deck of cards, and you draw 3 of them. Now, so you'll have random numbers, and on the top of the card, they have different action that you can do, and they have a number. So you select a card that you want to do, you place it face down, and then you reveal it at the same time. Whoever has the lowest number will get to do that top action. So it could be that, you know, maybe I'm a scientist and I get to bring in new scientists onto the board, or different things like that, depending on which side you're playing as. Then the player who has the higher number will get access to a few different actions they can do, but they get the higher number less the lower number. So you're trying to create, if you're going to be the lower number, you're trying to get as small of a gap as possible so the other player gets less movement or actions they can do. But if you're playing a high number, you're hoping to get a big gap so you have tons of movements you can do. And the mama raptor has different things that she can do, while the scientists have different other things that they can do. You know, so for example, one of the things, they can tranquilize a baby. But then you would need another scientist to come and pick up the baby and then bring it back to camp, so then you would get 1 baby raptor. You can tranquilize the mama raptor, so if you have set up so that you have line of sight, then you can shoot her with a dart. For the mama raptor, she can move. She can eat a scientist if she's next to them. One of the things scientists can do is they can put fires out to kind of keep the raptors kind of separated or under kind of controlled areas. And the mama raptor can put out those fires by whipping it with their tails, and there's different actions that they can do. It's such a neat game. We played this one just a couple days ago, actually. I played as a scientist, and Lee was the Raptors, and I actually ended up winning. And I don't know, like, I've played it different ways with the Mama Raptor and then with the scientist, and I don't know if there's one side that has an advantage more than the other. I think it's been fairly close for us, but such a neat game. Now, for the rating system, for conversation and connection potential, I gave this one a 3 out of 5. Because while you're setting your cards and you're kind of selecting what you're going to pick and you're thinking about it, there's lots of opportunities there to just have casual conversation, so that's great for that. Getting to know you, I give this a 2 out of 5. You're playing a card, doing your actions, and then kind of selecting. So there's not that much to kind of, that's going to be like really personality revealing. I don't really think. You've got limited actions that you can activate, and sometimes the game kind of makes sense as to what you probably should be doing. And then for hurt feelings and conflict, this is a competitive game, so there is going to be one winner, but it's, you know, the cards that you play, so, and it's definitely part of the game. So I don't think that this is a game that kind of harbors a lot of hurt feelings or tons of conflict in this one. So let me show you some more pictures of Raptor. So there you can see I had my cards. So I have a 3, a 4, and a 5. So I could play a 5, but my partner could have up to a 9. That would give him potential 4 actions they can do, but then I could activate the top action that would be on the top of the 5. So it's kind of an interesting tug of, like, kind of figuring out which card to play. Plus you're limited to those 3 cards, and then you would draw another one. And they can see that, well, you've already used your 9, you've already used your 8, so I don't think she'll go very high, so I'm going to play this. It's a little bit of a lower card, but it gives me a really good top action, so I'm hoping that she doesn't get too many movements, but yet I get to activate this. Just such a neat game. I'm a big fan of Raptors. And that was it for the games that I've talked during this month here so far. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, my Instagram is boardgame_mama, and there's also Games and Couples. On Facebook, my Facebook group is Disbury and Area is playing all the games, and you can also look us up at Games and Couples Love in the Age of Board Games. And the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel is Board Game Mama, and we also have Games and Couple Love in the Age of Board Games. So be sure to stay tuned and come back next month to see the next games that we'll be talking for potential games to play with your partner. Bye, everybody.